I just realized something very deep and extraordinary. People integrate themselves into a collective group in order to hide their sin from God and from themselves. What do I mean by this? Well, let's look at one example, the church. As animals, we want to be in a collective group. Why do we want this? Well, as cavemen, we wanted this because if we were on our own, then we were basically dead because these lions and stuff could just kill us. The other reason is, I think, if what we do is acceptable in society, then our mind is at ease. Our fleshly conscience is happy because it knows it's integrated itself into society well. But that doesn't mean you're pleasing God. For example, you've got the Pharisees in the church who are doing all these human traditions, and Jesus calls them out on that. And why did this even happen? It's because as Pharisees, they weren't at the synagogues to really have a relationship with God and to really live in the Spirit. They were at the synagogues to be the dominant role in a hierarchy system, the popular kids in the school, or the boss in the workplace. They were at church in order to feed their flesh, to give themselves this like fleshly security. They could be seen praying and stuff, and then people at the synagogues would really respect them. But they did not please God doing this. What happens is that because they seek to please humans, they developed their own traditions slowly and subconsciously and slowly. I think in every society, in every place, just as humans, when you're with a collective group, you feel stronger because you feel accepted. That's why people are like, I don't need God right now, because they're accepted by society. Society welcomes them, so they feel powerful and at peace. But the truth is, you've got all these alpha males who are dominant in society. But if you strip society away from them, they very quickly dissolve into nothingness. This means that God gives the people he loves times of loneliness in order to separate them from the human collective, thus making them feel biologically and emotionally in the flesh desperate, which resorts to them relying on God. Thus, they are forced to walk in the Spirit. That's why so many times in the Bible, God's people have been the people that have been isolated. That's one of the reasons why God uses the weak to shame the strong, because the weak, if you define weak are the people who in society, they're the people that are looked down upon. For example, Jesus' disciples, they were like tax collectors. Like everyone hated the tax collectors because they were dishonest, or stereotypically dishonest. Jesus was chilling with Mary Magdalene, a prostitute. Basically, like, God always uses the weak to shame the strong, because the weak are the people who, and the poor, the Bible says the poor are the people who are rich in faith, because they're not integrated into society. They have been shunned by society, and so they're in a perfect position to receive God. And that's also why when people are going through difficult times and are experiencing things that they're not used to experiencing and kind of unnatural in the human society, like not many people have experienced what they're experiencing, they often become more spiritual. Not even like, it doesn't even have to be with the Christian God. I remember I interviewed some guy in London. He was this white guy, but he was a Buddhist. He was a Buddhist Ichiran monk. And I was like, do you mind if I ask why and how you became a Buddhist monk? And then he was just talking about how he went through some difficult times. Everyone becomes more spiritual. We're forced to become more spiritual when we go through hard times and when we are stripped of our animalistic comforts in society. That's why God isolates his people before he does things. Like, that's why Jesus went to the desert. That's why John was in the wilderness for a long time. That's why Moses was away from society for a long time. If you read the story of Moses, it's so interesting because you can see that Moses knew his calling when he killed that Egyptian. It was because he was so confident in his calling that he was going to bring salvation to his people. So when he saw that guy kill the Israelite, he was so angry and he killed the guy because he was walking in his calling. But it wasn't like mature yet, so it was like an immature stage of his calling. So that happened, and then obviously he ran away. Obviously God used that for his purpose because Moses didn't know any better, and God knew that. Moses was just trying to do his best to seek the kingdom and seek his purpose in God, and that's what he did. From that, Moses ran away, and he spent like 40 years just with some random shepherd, his like father-in-law. I don't know how long, maybe it was 40 years. This is just off the top of my head. And then he saw the burning bush. The point I'm trying to make is sometimes it's good to get away from all the forms of society, even if that be the church. So, yeah. God bless.